On January 23, 2025, at exactly 4:47 p.m., a white sedan rolled into my shop, with the transmission acting like it had forgotten how to shift. The driver had already been quoted $1,800 for a new transmission control module and a software flash at the dealership. She handed me the estimate with that look, the one that said she knew something felt wrong, but had no way to prove it. I did not install a single part. I did not even open the hood. 7 minutes later, the transmission was shifting smoother than it had in months, and the driver sat in stunned silence as I explained what had actually been happening. That moment right there is the reason this video exists, because most drivers are one hidden reset away from a fortune, and almost nobody knows these resets exist. I have spent over 22 years working on cars, and I can tell you without hesitation that the last decade changed the repair game completely. Vehicles today are not just cars. They are rolling data centers, packed with modules that constantly monitor, learn, and adjust every system based on patterns they assume are correct. When those patterns drift, when bad data gets locked into memory, the symptoms can look catastrophic, while the fix often remains embarrassingly simple. The problem is not that your car is broken. The problem is that your car's brain is confused. Once you understand that distinction, repair bills stop feeling inevitable. Today, I am exposing the exact reset procedures that clear corrupted data, force systems to relearn correctly, and restore normal behavior without replacing anything. These are not tricks. These are not myths. These are professional diagnostic steps used daily by technicians who understand how modern vehicles actually think. I will show you how to recognize the difference between a data problem that disappears with a reset and a real mechanical failure that actually needs repair. Knowing when a reset works is just as critical as knowing when it will not. By the end of this video, you will understand why shops rarely offer resets first, why warning lights often mean nothing serious, and how to take control before panic costs you thousands. Your car is not dying nearly as often as you have been led to believe. Once you see how these fixes actually work, you will never look at a repair estimate the same way again. Most people assume car problems follow a simple pattern. Something breaks, a part fails, you replace it. That assumption made sense 30 years ago when cars were mechanical, but modern vehicles do not fail that way anymore. They get confused, and the difference is the difference between a 15-minute reset and a $1,500 invoice. Your car's computers are not reacting to reality. They are reacting to data. Sensor readings, stored memory, learned behavior. When those numbers drift, everything starts making wrong decisions, perfectly and expensively. Inside a modern car sit dozens of electronic control modules. The engine control unit manages fuel delivery and ignition timing. The transmission control module decides when and how hard to shift gears. None of them see the road. They trust data. When that data becomes corrupted, the system adapts. And that adaptation is where the damage begins. Imagine your transmission had a weak battery last winter. During cold starts, voltage dipped below optimal levels. The transmission control module compensated by shifting earlier and softer. That adaptation was saved. Months later, you replace the battery. Voltage is now perfect, but the module is still compensating for a problem that no longer exists. Shifts feel delayed. Acceleration feels sluggish. The driver takes it to a shop. A scan reveals borderline sensor readings. The shop recommends a new transmission solenoid, a software update, and a valve body inspection. Total cost, $1,800. The real problem is bad memory. A module is still reacting to a battery that died 6 months ago. This is why so many cars feel worse after routine maintenance. A throttle body gets cleaned, and suddenly the idle hunts. New spark plugs go in, and the engine runs rough for a week. The truth is simple. The modules were never told to stop compensating. The engine control unit still thinks the throttle is dirty. The fuel system still believes the sensor is weak. And all of that translates into symptoms that feel real, but are not mechanical. This is where resets become more powerful than replacements. Take a common example. A driver complains of harsh shifts after new tires. The shop checks fluid. Fluid is clean. They scan for codes. No codes. They test solenoids. Solenoids test fine, so they recommend a transmission service. Cost? $600 to $1,000. But here is what happened. During tire installation, the battery was briefly disconnected. When power returned, the transmission control module lost its adaptive memory. It reverted to default shift logic, which feels harsher. The solution? A transmission reset followed by a 20-minute relearn drive. Cost? $0. Time? 30 minutes. That is the gap where thousands vanish daily because drivers do not know resets exist and shops do not make money offering them. Most data problems develop silently. Fuel trims slowly climb. Idle speed creeps higher. Shift timing delays. By the time symptoms appear, the modules have spent months adapting to conditions that should have been corrected. The car feels off, but nothing is broken. It just does not feel right anymore. But because nothing screams failure, nothing gets fixed. The car drifts further from optimal. And eventually, real wear accelerates. A rich fuel mixture causes spark plug fouling. Delayed shifts create excess heat. One bad data point cascades into real mechanical problems, and by then, the reset that could have prevented everything is too late. But when you catch it early, you stop the cascade. You force the modules to forget bad assumptions. And suddenly, the car feels right again. That is what happens when systems operate on accurate information. Once you experience that shift, you stop being afraid. You stop assuming the worst. And you stop handing over money for problems that never needed repair. This is the knowledge gap the industry does not want you to close. So before we dive into the exact reset procedures you need to know, understand this. Resets are not magic. They are not universal fixes. They are diagnostic filters. They separate logic errors from physical damage. If a reset fixes the problem, you just avoided hundreds or thousands in unnecessary repairs. If it does not, you have lost nothing except a few minutes, and you have gained absolute clarity. The issue is real. It needs attention. But at least now you know. And knowing is the first step to control. What comes next is the second step, the exact procedures, the specific resets, the ones that work, the ones that matter, the ones that can change everything before you spend a single dollar you should not have to spend. This is where theory becomes action. Because once you know which resets to perform and how to perform them correctly, the dynamic shifts. You are no longer reacting. You are diagnosing. You are in control. Let me be clear. Resets do not fix broken parts. If a sensor is dead or a clutch is worn, a reset will not save it. But resets eliminate the noise. They clear the ghosts. And that clarity alone is worth thousands. The most common reset every driver should know is the full battery disconnect reset. This forces every module to lose adaptive memory and revert to factory baseline. Here is the proper way. Make certain the vehicle is parked safely with the ignition off. Remove the negative battery cable first. Always negative first. Black cable. Once disconnected, touch the negative cable to the positive terminal for 30 seconds. This forces capacitors to discharge and ensures modules fully reset. After 30 seconds, wait an additional 10 to 15 minutes. This waiting period is not optional. After waiting, reconnect the battery, positive first, then negative. Start the engine and let it idle without touching the throttle. The idle may hunt for 1 minute. This is normal. The engine control unit is relearning idle control. Drive gently for the first 20 to 30 miles. Light throttle inputs, smooth acceleration, no hard braking, no aggressive starts. This is the relearn phase, and it matters more than the reset itself. During this phase, the transmission learns shift points, the engine learns fuel delivery, and the throttle learns position. If you floor the throttle immediately after reconnecting the battery, you teach the modules to expect panic. They will adapt to aggression and shifts will remain harsh. Instead, drive calmly. Accelerate like you are carrying eggs in the back seat. Let the systems observe normal, predictable conditions. Let the fuel trims stabilize around zero. Let the transmission learn smooth shift points under predictable load. By the end of that relearn period, if the problem was data corruption, it will be gone. Completely. No warning lights, no rough idle, no harsh shifts. If the problem persists, you now know it is not a memory issue. It is hardware. Something is genuinely broken. And that knowledge just saved you from blindly replacing parts that were never the problem. The battery disconnect resets everything, which is powerful but sometimes unnecessary. What if only one system misbehaves? That is when targeted fuse resets become critical. For transmission issues, locate the transmission control module fuse. With the ignition off, pull that fuse. Wait 60 seconds. Reinstall the fuse. Turn the ignition to on without starting the engine. Wait 30 seconds, then start the engine and perform a relearn drive. For body control module issues like erratic windows or door locks, pull the body control module fuse. Follow the same procedure. For infotainment freezes, many vehicles have button combinations, for example holding power and volume down for 10 seconds. Then there is the throttle body relearn, critical after cleaning the throttle. With the ignition off, disconnect the battery for 15 minutes. Reconnect the battery. Turn the ignition to on without starting the engine. Wait 2 full minutes. The throttle actuator will self-calibrate. After 2 minutes, turn the ignition off. Wait 10 seconds. Start the engine and let it idle for 5 minutes without touching the gas. The idle may fluctuate. Let it settle. This teaches the correct throttle plate position at idle. Skip this and the idle will hunt. For fuel system resets after replacing injectors or cleaning the fuel system, the engine control unit needs to relearn fuel delivery. After the repair, disconnect the battery for 15 minutes. Reconnect the battery. Start the engine and let it warm up to full operating temperature. Then drive through varying conditions. City streets at 25 to 35 miles per hour. Highway speeds at 55 to 65 miles per hour. Gentle acceleration mixed with moderate load. The goal is to expose the system to diverse operating points so it can rebuild accurate fuel maps. Within 50 to 100 miles, fuel economy should stabilize and throttle response should sharpen. One often overlooked reset is the steering angle sensor calibration. If your car pulls slightly to one side after an alignment, or if the stability control light flickers on turns, the steering angle sensor may need recalibration. Many vehicles allow this reset through a simple procedure. Turn the steering wheel fully to the left and hold for 2 seconds, then fully to the right and hold for 2 seconds, then return the wheel to center. Turn the ignition off, then back on. The system resets its 0 point. Some vehicles require driving in a straight line for a few hundred feet to complete the calibration. But here is the critical part. Resets only work if underlying conditions are clean. If you reset the transmission but the fluid is burnt and low, the module will relearn bad behavior. If you reset fuel trims but there is a massive vacuum leak, the trims will skew again within minutes. Resets are not substitutes for maintenance. They are corrections for when maintenance has been performed, but the modules were not told to stop compensating. Think of it this way. If you had a dirty air filter for 6 months and the engine learned to run rich to compensate, replacing the filter is only half the job. The engine control unit is still adding extra fuel. A reset tells it to look again, to measure reality instead of memory. And this is where it gets uncomfortable for the industry. Because once drivers understand this, once they realize how many symptoms are memory-based instead of mechanical, the entire repair dynamic changes. Suddenly, a check engine light is not a crisis. It is information. A rough idle is not a death sentence. It is a clue. A harsh shift is not a transmission rebuild. It is a relearn signal. Drivers stop panicking. They start testing. They perform a reset. They observe the results. If the problem vanishes, they just saved a fortune. If it returns quickly, they know it is real and deserves professional attention with actual diagnostic work. But either way, they are diagnosing instead of guessing. They are verifying instead of assuming. And that shift in mindset is exactly what the repair industry does not want, because informed customers are expensive customers to the business model. They ask why before they authorize. They request specific procedures by name. They understand when a part is being recommended to cover a reset that should have been performed first. I have watched this play out hundreds of times. A driver comes in convinced their car is dying. I perform a reset. The symptoms disappear. The driver sits stunned, caught between relief and anger. Relief because the car is fine. Anger because they almost spent money they did not need to spend. And that is when I tell them the same thing. You are not alone. This happens every day. To every type of driver, with every type of vehicle. The only difference between those who pay unnecessarily and those who do not is knowledge. And now you have it. Reset after battery replacement, reset after sensor replacement, reset after throttle cleaning, reset after fluid changes, reset when symptoms appear without codes, reset when the car feels off but nothing obvious is broken. But do not reset blindly, hoping it fixes neglect. Resets are correction tools, not maintenance substitutes. And if there is one final thing you need to remember, it is this. Modern cars reward informed owners. The more you understand how modules interact, the less fear controls your decisions. You start saving real money, consistently, month after month, year after year. So before you authorize that next repair, before you assume the worst, do this. Reset, observe, confirm, then decide. That sequence is the difference between control and confusion. Between knowledge and fear, between keeping your money and watching it vanish for problems that never existed. If this video changed how you think about car repairs, hit like so more drivers see it. Subscribe for weekly breakdowns that give you power instead of panic. If you have ever fixed a problem with a reset that a shop wanted to charge you for, drop it in the comments. The most expensive car problem is not the one that breaks your vehicle. It is the one that breaks your confidence. Now you have the knowledge to take that confidence back.